On the morning of June 30th, 1908, the quiet forests of Siberia were torn apart by fire. At 7:17 a.m., a blinding flash lit up the sky. Villagers hundreds of miles away saw the heavens split open. Some said it was brighter than the sun. Moments later, a shock wave thundered across the land. The ground shook. Windows shattered. People were thrown from their chairs. And deep within the forest, 80 million trees were flattened in a perfect radial pattern, as if some invisible giant had slammed its fist into the earth. Yet when scientists arrived years later, they found something far stranger. There was no crater, no trace of impact, only silence, only devastation. The nearest eyewitnesses lived in remote Siberian villages. They described a ball of fire streaking across the morning sky. Some called it the second sun. Others swore they saw the heavens open like a burning scroll. A farmer named Semyon Semenov recalled, "Suddenly, the sky split in two. Fire appeared high and wide over the forest. I felt a great heat, as if my shirt was on fire. Then came a strong bang, and I was thrown several yards. My wife was knocked off her feet. The ground trembled, and the earth groaned." For weeks, strange stories spread. At night, the skies glowed in colors of green and orange, so bright that in London and Paris, people claimed they could read their newspapers outdoors at midnight. The explosion had occurred over one of the most remote places on Earth, the Podkamenia Tunguska River, a land of endless forest and swamp. No roads led there. No scientists could reach it. For nearly 20 years, the mystery remained untouched. When Russian expeditions finally arrived in 1927, what they found was unlike anything in recorded history. For more than 800 square miles, the forest lay destroyed. Trees were stripped of their branches and bark, flattened outward from a single point, all pointing away like compass needles from an invisible center. At ground zero, the few trees that still stood remained upright, but scorched and lifeless, as if seared by a furnace. But there was no crater, no massive boulder of space rock, no sign of what had caused the blast. The devastation was real, but the culprit was gone. The expeditions collected fragments of soil, rocks, and samples from the site. They expected to find iron, nickel, or other remains of a meteor. Instead, nothing. But they did notice something unusual. The trees around ground zero showed accelerated growth in the years after the explosion, as if some unseen radiation had altered them. Magnetic anomalies were recorded in the area. Compasses spun erratically. And yet, not a single body was found. Some locals claimed that reindeer herds were incinerated in the blast. Others spoke of hunters who vanished in the forests, never to return. But official records mention no victims. An event that could flatten a city left behind no confirmed dead. Scientists began to argue. The leading theory was that a meteor or a fragment of a comet had entered Earth's atmosphere and exploded in the sky before striking the ground. A so-called airburst. It would explain the lack of crater and the immense shockwave. But this raised more questions. If the object had vaporized, why was there no trace in the soil? Why no fragments? Why did the skies glow for weeks afterward? Others suggested the culprit was not from space at all. Siberia's ground is rich in methane and gas pockets. Perhaps a sudden eruption had ignited into the sky, tearing the forest apart. But this would not explain the fireball streaking across the heavens seen by hundreds of witnesses. And then came stranger theories. Some whispered that the Tunguska event was no accident, but an experiment. The Serbian inventor Nikola Tesla had claimed his Wardenclyffe Tower in New York could transmit wireless energy across the globe. Months before the explosion, he wrote of testing a death ray powerful enough to bring down an army. Could Tesla's experiment have caused the skies over Siberia to burn? Others turned to the stars. Some suggested it was not a meteor, but an alien craft. A ship that entered Earth's atmosphere and detonated to avoid impact. Even in modern times, researchers have detected unusual isotopes in the soil near Tunguska, raising questions of radiation or materials not native to Earth. More than 100 years have passed since the morning the sky exploded. Modern studies suggest the culprit was likely a stony asteroid, perhaps 100 feet wide, breaking apart before it could strike the ground. And yet, questions remain. Why has no crater been found? Not even a shallow depression. Why do the trees still show signs of mutation? Why did the skies glow so brightly over Europe? In the archives of history, the Tunguska event remains a riddle. A scar on the earth with no weapon to match it. An explosion 1,000 times more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima, yet with no trace of its origin. On that morning in 1908, the earth was struck by something unseen. Something so powerful it leveled a forest the size of a small country. If it had arrived just a few hours later, it would have struck the city of St. Petersburg. If it had happened today, in the wrong place, millions would die. The people of Tunguska never found an answer. And neither have we. The question remains, what really fell from the sky that day? And will it happen again?